The moment you realize she never loved you is the moment you realize you never loved her. You loved what she represented. You loved what she could do for you. You loved the emotional comfort she provided. But you never saw her, the actual human being behind your projections, and she knew it all along. She played the role you needed because that's how she survived in a world where men hold the visible power. She mastered the invisible kind. What if everything you believe about love is a carefully constructed lie? What if the pain you feel when she leaves isn't about missing her, but about missing who you thought you were when she was there? Nietzsche saw this truth over a century ago, and we're still not ready to hear it. This isn't about blame. This is about waking up. From your first bedtime story, they planted the seed. The prince finds the princess. The hero gets the girl. Love conquers all. They never told you that what you're seeking isn't love. It's emotional salvation. You were taught that somewhere someone waits who will heal your wounds, who will make you feel whole, who will give your life meaning beyond yourself. And you believed it. Not because you're weak, not because you're stupid, but because the alternative was too terrifying to face, that perhaps no one is coming to save you from yourself. Look at how you pursue her, not as an equal, but as medicine. You dress it up as romance, as devotion, as selfless love, but strip away the poetry and what remains, need. Desperate, aching need. When you say, "I can't live without you," you're not expressing love. You're confessing dependency. You're admitting that you've outsourced your self-worth to another human being, and in that admission lies your surrender. Remember that relationship that destroyed you? The one where you gave everything only to be left empty? You didn't lose her. You lost your reflection in her eyes. You thought you were loving her, but you were using her as a mirror to show you a version of yourself you could finally accept. And when she stopped reflecting that image back, when she stopped playing along, you called it betrayal. You called it cruelty. You never once considered that perhaps she was simply exhausted from carrying the weight of your unaddressed wounds. This is the first truth Nietzsche understood. Men don't worship women because women are divine. Men worship women because worship is easier than self-confrontation. Now let's look at her side of this dance. She wasn't born knowing how to handle your emotional neediness. She learned through necessity. While you were taught to conquer the world, she was taught to conquer relationships. While you built external power, she mastered internal influence. Not because she's naturally manipulative, but because for centuries, understanding and managing male psychology was her only path to security. Watch how she operates. She doesn't demand your attention. She withdraws it, creating a vacuum you rush to fill. She doesn't command, she suggests, planting ideas you later claim as your own. She doesn't grab power. She creates conditions where you willingly surrender it. Think of your last argument. Did she raise her voice? Or did she go quiet in a way that made your stomach drop? Did she make demands? Or did she simply say, "Do whatever you want," in a tone that made it clear there would be consequences? That's not manipulation. That's mastery. She learned that her absence creates more emotional presence than her availability ever could. That her silence speaks louder than words. That a single disappointed look can change your behavior faster than any direct request. When she says, "I'm fine," with that look in her eyes, you both know she's not fine. But you also know she won't explain why. She'll make you figure it out, like a psychological scavenger hunt where the prize is her approval returning. And you play along believing this is just how women are, emotional, mysterious, complex. What if she's none of those things? What if she's executing a strategy born from centuries where direct power was denied to her, where her only currency was relationship, where understanding men's weaknesses was her only strength? The second truth Nietzsche saw. In love, visible power and actual power are rarely the same thing. The one who appears to surrender often controls the dance. Let's turn the mirror toward you now. You think you're pursuing her. You think you're the one taking risks, being vulnerable, putting yourself out there. But your so-called vulnerability is actually a sophisticated form of emotional manipulation. "I'm giving you all of me," you say, as if that's a gift rather than a burden. You're not offering partnership. You're offering a contract. If I give you my devotion, will you give me my worth back? When you text her constantly, when you want to spend every moment together, When you get anxious if she doesn't respond right away, you call that love. What if it's just fear wearing a romantic mask? Fear of being alone with yourself. Fear of confronting the emptiness you feel when no one's there to distract you from it. The real reason her pulling away terrifies you isn't that you can't bear to lose her. It's that you can't bear to lose what she provides: validation, purpose, proof that you matter. Remember how you changed yourself for her? How you adopted her interests, adjusted your future plans, distanced yourself from friends she didn't like? You called that compromise. You called that maturity. What if it was surrender disguised as growth? You weren't becoming a better man. You were becoming a smaller one, gradually erasing yourself in exchange for her approval. And with each piece you sacrificed, you grew more dependent on her staying. Because without her, who would you even be anymore? This is emotional addiction masquerading as devotion. This is fear masquerading as love. And here's where it gets painful. She sensed this all along. She saw the neediness beneath your grand gestures. She felt the desperation beneath your declarations of love. And it didn't make her love you more. It made her respect you less. Because no matter how much she cares for you, she cannot respect a man who needs her approval to feel complete. She cannot truly desire someone who has made her responsible for his emotional well-being. The third truth Nietzsche understood: true strength isn't found in conquest, but in self-sufficiency. And nothing reveals a man's weakness more clearly than his emotional dependency on a woman's validation. In Revenge and in Love, woman is more barbarous than man. Friedrich Nietzsche. This isn't because women are cruel. It's because they're honest in ways men refuse to be. When she ends things, when she moves on, she doesn't linger in the wreckage of what was. She doesn't romanticize the pain. You call her cold. You call her heartless. What if she's simply seeing clearly what you refuse to see? The relationship died long before she left. It died the moment you stopped being partners and became patient and caretaker instead. It died when your need outgrew your contribution. She didn't betray you by leaving. She finally stopped betraying herself by staying. And now comes the reckoning, the moment of truth that separates boys from men. Will you blame her for changing, for not being who she used to be? Or will you finally see that she didn't change? She just stopped performing the role you assigned her. Will you call her manipulative for withdrawing her affection? Or will you recognize that her affection was never an entitlement you were owed, but a gift she chose to give, until the price became too high? Will you tell yourself stories about how she'll regret losing you, about how no one will ever love her like you did? Or will you confront the uncomfortable truth that your love came with invisible strings attached? Strings that eventually strangled whatever genuine connection might have existed. The fourth truth Nietzsche saw: the end of illusion feels like betrayal only to those who preferred the comfort of the lie. Let me ask you something that will hurt. Did you ever truly see her? Not as your savior, not as your muse, not as your emotional support system, but as a complete human being with her own darkness, her own light, her own agenda, that exists entirely separate from what she can do for you? Did you love her? Or did you love how she made you feel about yourself? Did you miss her when she was gone? Or did you miss who you got to be when she was there? Hard questions, I know. Questions that strip away the romantic narratives we hide behind. Questions that force us to confront the selfishness that often masquerades as selfless love. Most men will never ask themselves these questions. They'll move from relationship to relationship, repeating the same patterns, blaming women for not appreciating what I gave, without ever considering that what they gave wasn't what was needed or wanted. They'll continue to seek completion in another's eyes rather than finding it within themselves. They'll continue to mistake emotional dependency for depth of feeling. They'll continue to be baffled when the women they loved so completely walk away, and they'll never grow up. The fifth truth. Nietzsche understood: growth begins at the exact point where comfort ends, and nothing is less comfortable than confronting the lie at the heart of what you've called love. Here's where we reach the turning point, the moment where you either retreat back into comfortable illusion or step forward into painful truth. She wasn't put on this earth to heal you. She wasn't designed to be your emotional caretaker. She wasn't created to give your life meaning. She is a separate being with her own wounds, her own needs, her own journey that may or may not include you. And until you can see her this way, not as your savior but as your equal, not as your solution but as your companion, you will never experience real love. You will only experience mutual using disguised as connection. Real love isn't about needing, it's about seeing. It's about standing on your own emotional ground, complete within yourself, and from that place of wholeness choosing to walk alongside another whole person. It's about wanting her in your life but not needing her to give your life value. It's about offering support without expecting salvation in return. This is what Nietzsche meant when he wrote, "One ought to hold on to one's heart, for if one lets it go, one soon loses control of the head too." He wasn't advocating coldness. He was advocating clarity, self-sufficiency, the courage to face yourself before asking another to face you. So where do you go from here? How do you break the cycle of emotional dependency and projection that's been sold to you as love? First, you grieve. You grieve the loss of the comforting illusion. You grieve the fantasy that someone else can complete you. You grieve the stories you've been telling yourself about what love is and what it can do. Then, you face yourself, all of yourself, the emptiness you've been running from, the insecurities you've been hiding, the wounds you've been expecting others to heal. You learn to sit with your own darkness without needing someone else's light to make it bearable. You build a relationship with yourself that doesn't depend on external validation to feel worthwhile. You become the source of your own meaning, and only when you no longer need someone to save you from yourself are you ready to truly love another person. Not as a means to an end, not as an emotional service provider, but as a separate being whom you choose to walk beside, whose presence enriches a life that was already complete without them. This kind of love doesn't complete you. It expands you. It doesn't solve your problems. It multiplies your joys and divides your sorrows. This is love beyond need, love beyond use, love that comes not from lack, but from abundance. The final truth. Nietzsche understood. Only those who can bear to be alone are capable of true connection. Everyone else is just using others to avoid themselves. I'm not telling you this to condemn you. I'm telling you this to free you. Free you from the exhausting cycle of seeking in others what can only be found within yourself. Free you from the inevitable disappointment that comes when another human being fails to be your salvation. Free you from the terror of abandonment that haunts every relationship built on need rather than choice. This is your invitation to grow up, to evolve beyond the stories you've been told about what love is and what it can do for you, to stop seeing women as angels or demons, as saviors or betrayers, as muses or manipulators, and start seeing them simply as human beings navigating their own complex inner landscapes. To stop outsourcing your emotional well-being and start taking responsibility for it. This is hard work, the hardest work, and most will avoid it at all costs, preferring the temporary comfort of illusion to the lasting freedom of truth. But for those brave enough to face it, something extraordinary awaits on the other side. The possibility of connection without dependency, of intimacy without loss of self, of love without fear, not the fairy tale version of love that was sold to you as a child, something far more rare and valuable. Love between equals. Love between whole beings who choose each other not out of need, but out of recognition. Nietzsche wrote, "The true man wants two things, danger and play. For that reason he wants woman as the most dangerous plaything." But perhaps he was wrong about this one thing. Perhaps the truly evolved man wants neither to conquer nor to worship woman. Perhaps he simply wants to meet her, finally, as she actually is, not as the projection of his needs and fears. And perhaps in that meeting something new can begin. Not the end of love, but its transformation into something worthy of the name. If this stirred something in you, if you recognized yourself in these words, know that you stand at a crossroads. Behind you lies comfortable illusion. Ahead lies painful growth. The choice, as always, is yours. But remember what Nietzsche knew. The path to becoming who you truly are runs directly through what you've been most afraid to face. Are you ready to face it now?